Thank you, everyone, for tuning into another newly listed on the CSE clip. I'm Anil Mall with the Canadian Securities Exchange, and today I am talking to one of our latest newly listed companies. I have the pleasure of sitting down virtually with Ian McDonald, who's the CEO of Minds Biosciences Inc. Ian, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the CSE.
Thanks, Anil. Appreciate it, and pleasure to talk to you today.
Likewise, likewise. Ian, let's start. Why don't you talk to our audience about Minds Biosciences? What is the vision behind your company?
So Minds Biosciences is a biotechnology company, and it was created on the vision that we can invent superior serotonergic drugs. And serotonergic drugs, that's the system that it operates on in the brain. Some of those compounds are psychedelic, other ones aren't. And we feel that we can address some of the safety liabilities, as well as fine-tune the drugs to make them of interest to the larger pharmaceutical community in terms of adoption and really getting these drugs out to a large patient population, helping a lot of people with serious mental health and neurological disorders.
So what was the strategy behind taking a company like Minds Biosciences public?
Well, as you're probably aware, the drug development process is a capital-intensive one, and in order to fund the clinical development and get these drugs from where they are now, which is more or less invented, and take them through phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 clinical trials, we needed to have access to capital and access to the shareholders that share that vision and can take us through those next rounds of financing and take these drugs to approved products that will then be prescribed from a doctor near you.
Ian, tell us a little bit about your background.
So my background is as an investment banker. I worked in the industry for a number of years, first in merchant banking, then in investment banking. And I linked up with two, I would say, of the top drug developers in the field. One of them was a professor at places like Georgetown University, the Mayo Clinic, studied at Harvard under Nobel Prize winner. He spent his 40-year career really working on psychoactive drugs, creating safer versions and trying to address a lot of the deficiencies in a number of drugs you may know. He invented a drug called Nocaine, and Nocaine was to help you wean off of cocaine. It never got approved, but the drug worked quite well. Also in that, he's one of the leading minds in the serotonergic field, which is the pathway that psychedelics work on. With his skill set paired with our other scientific co-founder, Gideon Shapiro's skill set, who had a similar background, but instead of going the famous professor route, he went the industrial route. He actually started off his career at Sandoz Pharmaceuticals in Switzerland, in their CNS division, which is the brain drugs division. Sandoz is the birthplace of LSD. He actually worked one floor directly below where Albert Hofmann discovered LSD, and he actually went on to run that entire CNS chemistry division. So a lot of solid skills there. And after that, for his last 7 years, he spent developing a second generation superior version of ketamine at another company. And there they had a lot of big pharma interest. And it's basically just a rinse and repeat. Instead of working on the NMDA pathway, we're now working on the serotonergic pathway. So those are I would say the two core guys on the scientific team. But below that, we basically cherry picked the best scientists from around the world and have them working on this shared goal of creating safer, better drugs that can get to more people.
Got it. You know, there's so much competition in the space that you're in. What would you say differentiates a company like Minds Biosciences from some of your peers in this space?
Yeah, you're right. There are a lot of people that are working in this field, and that's something that we think is long overdue. We believe that these medicines are efficacious, but they lack a lot of the drug-like characteristics. These are kind of your first generation of the iPhone, if you will. And what we're creating is the iPhone 10, something that just works a little better, is safer, and and can target a specific patient population. What's more, a lot of our competitors are working with molecules that were discovered in the 1950s, 40s, 60s. And in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, we didn't know what we know now about the brain. So in the brain, you have 14 different serotonin subtype receptors. That was only discovered in the 1990s. So what we are able to do is use modern drug discovery techniques to precisely target the receptors that we want and not hit the ones that we don't. And with that, since we're creating new molecules, we can then patent them. From a financial standpoint, it's 2 orders of magnitude greater in terms of revenue. So intellectual property protection, next generation drugs that will replace a lot of the drugs that these other companies are taking forward. And a team that's done it before and a team that's spent their whole career in drug discovery in the CNS field and has had extensive experience, not only working for, but working with big pharma companies. And I think those are the core tenets that set us apart.
Got it. Are you able to talk about any milestones our viewers have to look forward to?
Yeah, sure. So we have a lot of data that we're going to be sharing in the next little bit on preclinical studies. One for Dravet, which is a form of epilepsy, a childhood form of epilepsy. Also for binge eating disorder and for opioid use disorder. We are moving our compounds rapidly towards the clinic. These drugs will start a phase 1 initiation towards, call it Q4 of this year. So lots going on at the company, making more and more drugs every day and advancing them pretty quickly down the pathway to get to patients as soon as possible.
Got it. I was over on your website and I noticed that, you guys have had quite a bit of media coverage over the last year and a bit. I seen a couple of Vice articles that Dr. Alan Kozakowski was featured in. I think you were in one of them as well. So where can our audience go to keep up with some of your recent news, to read some of these articles? What's your website? Are you guys on social media as well?
We are. Everything is Bright Minds Bio. We have an Instagram page, we have a Twitter page, and obviously a website. I would suggest, in order to stay up to date on news, sign up for our newsletter. That's probably the best place to check, and we will be putting out press releases periodically when there's news.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, on your first week of trading to come talk to us here at the CSE about your company, the vision, the team, and what you guys have going on. We wish nothing but success for you and your team moving forward. And again, thank you so much for your time, Ian. To everybody watching, this has been Ian McDonald, CEO of Bright Minds Biosciences Inc. Ian, thank you so much.
Thanks, Anil.
Thank you for tuning in to another newly listed on the CSE. Please feel free to hit like and share this content and hit subscribe if you haven't already.